4 weeks ago, I got some mails from the Peter Pan bus service informing me of the closure of the Port Authority bus terminal in New York. There was an explosion at the terminal, and so an evacuation exercise was taking place. The mail warned all buses not to come to the Port Authority. They also gave bus drivers new destinations for disembarkation. These mails I received from the Peter Pan bus service reminds me of my own country, Ghana, and what happens here under such circumstances. Indeed, about the same time that the Port Authority bus terminal was closed in New York, here in Ghana, the Ministry of Transport had closed down 2 major bridges that link the north and south of this country. Today, we want to look at just how the Ministry of Transport handled the closure of those bridges, especially in the context of the emails that I received whilst living here in Ghana. The bus service in New York remembered me and sent me emails to inform me of the closure of the terminal. We shall look at just how we did our own in Ghana in the context of what happened in New York. This is Ghana for you. This is Ghana. This is Ghana. This is Ghana. This is Ghana. The Boipei and Yapei bridges are 2 major bridges that link the north and south of Ghana. Hundreds of commercial and private vehicles ply that highway on a daily basis. Somehow, there was the need to repair some damaged parts of the 2 bridges. And the Ministry of Transport, which is responsible for the repairs, decided to close down the bridges. What is interesting is that when the ministry decided to close down the bridges for the repairs, it forgot to inform the traveling public of their decision. And so Ghanaians woke up one fine morning to realize that the bridges had been closed. Indeed, people traveled all the way from the border in Navrongo up to Yapei before they realized that they could not cross. Similarly, those in the south traveled all the way to Boipei only to be told that the bridge had been closed down. Indeed, it was only when this chaos erupted at both ends of the highway that the Ministry of Transport remembered that it had to make alternative arrangements for people to continue their journeys. Indeed, passengers had to cough up extra money to pay for their way through, as drivers had to look for alternative routes. And drivers had to look for extra money to refill their fuel tanks to be able to go on their journeys using alternative routes. The question is, why will a ministry decide to close down these 2 major bridges and yet do not remember to inform the public? One would have thought that there would have to be a comprehensive mass communication effort that informs all of us with a minimum of 2 weeks notice to all traveling public that these bridges were going to be closed down for repairs. One would have thought that the ministry would have established or posted signboards all along the highway showing drivers and passengers alternative routes that they had created so people can continue to travel in spite of the closure. And yet none of these happened. This is what I call the biggest disrespect for the public. Parliament summoned the Minister for Transport to explain the chaos that had erupted at the two sides of the bridges. Minister in Parliament gave the excuse that he needed to close down the bridges and repair the damage on the bridges before there was a national catastrophe. Mr. Minister, the argument is not about whether you should close the bridges or not. You have a responsibility to repair the bridges and to ensure the safety of the traveling public. So by closing the bridges for repairs, you did your rightful duty. What we are asking is why you would embark on such a major exercise without thinking about the people. Why you would embark on closing such a major road without making alternative routes and alternative means of transport available to the traveling public. That is why we consider that you disrespected the people. You did not think about them at all. You just went about doing your job and indeed forgot about the people for whom you were repairing the bridges. This issue also raises another factor about a certain level of impunity and indiscipline that is growing in our society. 2 days into the closure of the two bridges, the Ministry of Transport realized that there was a ferry in the Afram Plains that could be deployed in the north to serve as alternative means of transport because of the chaos that had erupted on the trunk road. When they went up to the Afram Plains to move the ferry, the residents of this area resisted. We are told that residents literally slept on the ferry to protect the ferry and to stop the ministry from moving the ferry away from them. Their reason was that the ferry belonged to them. Their assemblyman and member of parliament were reported in the media as saying that the former president who launched or commissioned the ferry told them that the ferry was their own. This is the indiscipline and impunity that I am talking about. We all know that there is a state company in this country called the Volta Lake Transport Company that is in charge of all transportation on the Volta Lake. The ferries and speed boats on this lake all are the assets of the Volta Lake Transport. How a people can appropriate an entire vessel as their own and stop the ministry from moving that ferry or from redeploying that ferry to a place that it was needed is something that we all should think about. And not only think about, we have to worry about. If care is not taken, soon various groups of people would also begin to assume ownership of certain roads and certain bridges in this country. Indeed, the Navy was sent to the Afram Plains, and like the Entebbe raid of Uganda, these people landed in the Afram Plains at dawn, and in Rambo style, they rescued the ferry and took it all the way to Makango in the northern region to ensure that the traveling public continued with their journeys. Now, that is a sad narration. That is a sad incident that should never reoccur. Let politicians who go to commission these assets or projects be reminded that these are state assets. And so when they commission them, they should be careful what they tell the people. Yes, you may have promised that you would bring about some level of comfort in terms of transportation on the lake for a people, but the state structures remain, and that these assets remain the assets of the state. That should be made clear to every group of people. Otherwise, like I said, sooner or later, the villages along the highway, the villages close to the major bridges that we are building on our highways, would appropriate these bridges and roads, and you may not be able to travel on them any longer. This is Ghana for you. This is